Are we live? I hope so. I think so. You should be live. I can't see it up. It's not loading. There we go. We're live. Okay. Well, welcome, if you're watching, to another episode of BuckShots with Luke and Trevor. However, if you're looking at the right side of your screen, you will notice that it's not, in fact, Luke. It's our friend Max who's filling in for Luke, who is at the Packer game today. Max, how's it going?
Doing great. I'm ready for a Packer win tonight.
So, Max, as much as we like to talk about the Packers, obviously, this is Buckshot, so we're going to focus on that, and we're just going to dive straight into it. I know Packer fans are going to be wanting to watch pregame, so it's going to be a short episode. But week started off since our last episode Saturday. Don't need to talk about Toronto game, really don't need to. But Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the Bucks played the Hawks, lost 121-114. Got outscored by 12 in the fourth quarter to lose. Tough loss at Atlanta, Max. What were your thoughts on this game?
To be honest, I know that Atlanta hasn't had their best season. I've been hearing a lot of people say that they've been one of like the worst quote unquote underperformers, but they're still a really good team. They have max contract type of guys on that team, and it's anytime you have one of those holiday games on the road, I think it's always going to be a pretty tough environment. Trey Young, whether you love him or hate him, is a very, very good player in the fourth quarter. I'm not super concerned. Again, especially with those Hawks bigs, I think having Lopez back would have made a difference, but obviously without him, no sweat for me, Trevor. No sweat for me.
Yeah, one of the stories of this game was the fouls and the free throws. Bucks committed 10 more fouls. Saw the Hawks go to the line 32 times to the Bucks 24. Hawks made 30 of 32 free throws for 94%. Did you think that was just one of those physical games that it just happens like that, or did you think that there was anything else amiss, quote unquote?
I don't know if I'd say there's anything amiss, but I just got to say Trey Young is a master at baiting fouls. He's extremely good at drawing contact. He did that a ton in Oklahoma, especially where he kind of basically like comes to a stop. He gets past the defender off a screen and then stops, and you're basically on his back. There's nothing you can do. It's frustrating. If they're going to call that, it's fine. I'm not totally sure if that happened at all in that game, but he's an elite free throw shooter. He's going to draw a lot of fouls. I wouldn't say it was a big enough discrepancy to say that there was anything maybe amiss, but free throws are always going to be something to talk about with the Bucks because Giannis can hit 18 of 18, he can be 10 of 18. But again, I think he's the best player in the world, but that's always I think something, especially when you're on the road. And they're counting down from 10 on you sometimes just to get under the reins. And I think it'll be fine in the long run.
Yeah, to your point about Trey Young, he had 14 free throws, hit all of them. He had troubles earlier in the year with those free throws, but hey, from what I've seen, they were a little more legitimate. So I agree. And 10 more fouls, but only 8 more free throws. That's not too much of a disparity. Giannis had one of those in the middle free throw games, 10 for 14. Really not too much to take from that. I agree with you too. It was nice to see the offense kind of roll because the big thing was Drew Holiday wasn't in this game. Got to think that if Drew Holiday was in this game defensively, probably would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And even though Trey Young has historically played pretty well against us, especially obviously we saw that in the playoffs with a couple pretty dominant performances before the injury. They're going to be a tough out. They're still a team that I would really worry about if they make the playoffs as, say, a 7 or an 8 seed. However, getting Lopez back and then obviously having Holiday out wasn't really going to help our cause on the road. So I agree with you. Just kind of one of those tabula rasa games, blank slate, winner or loss, you learn something, you move forward.
I don't think you know how we do things here. That's too big of a word there, tabula. You can't be using that on the show, but I see what you mean. I see what you mean. So the Bucks went on. They played the Grizzlies on Wednesday, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. I think Wednesday, won 126, 114 at home. Won by 12, obviously. Really just kind of the Bucks kind of the whole game with that lead. Had the lead at the end of the first, never gave it up again, although it came close late in the fourth. We were able to close it out, though. Big story was the duel between Ja Morant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, both had 33. Giannis with 15 boards, 7 assists. Ja Morant, 8 rebounds, 14 assists. What did you see from this game, if anything key? And how about that performance from Ja Morant?
He's special. I mean, I think coming out of college, I remember obviously, painfully just annihilated Marquette in the tournament. And I remember thinking like I knew he was good, but kind of seeing him be able to put just a complete show on was pretty dazzling. I think coming into the NBA, his only problem was maybe he forced passes sometimes. He would kind of go for the razzle dazzle, which as a fan is great. I love Ja Morant, but sometimes in those early rookie games, he'd have the 7-8 turnover performance. And to be honest, at the time I was a little bit skeptical. I was worried that he'd become a little bit more of a Russell Westbrook type player that can have really big statistical games, but maybe couldn't quite get over the hump in terms of that playoff production and in terms of the efficiency. But he's completely proven me wrong. He's dominated this season. He's looked like one of the best guards in the game. It's great that he's playing. I think in terms of just for the NBA, it would be great to get Williamson healthy because that can kind of be a nice Western Conference battle, and I think that's something the league's been missing. Again, in terms of his performance against the Bucks, he was great. Obviously, we did really well getting a lot of guys involved in that game. I know Portis had a big game. We had a lot of guys in double figures, which is very helpful. And I think, as well as the Grizzlies have played, I think they're still a year away from being a true contender in the West. But just the fact that he was able to do that against a pretty stout defensive team. Not a lot of guys get 14 assists against the Bucks, and I think it's just a testament to how much he's grown as a passer. But tough to beat Giannis if you're in Milwaukee. If he has a game like that and everyone else does well, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, to your point about kind of playing or kind of coming into the league looking like possibly a Russell Westbrook, he's really improved his 3-point shooting. 36% from deep this year, 4 for 10 that game. That was big. And, also Jaren Jackson had a quiet 29 as well. But to your point about getting other people involved, Chris Middleton had his big game, 27 points. Portis 14, Hill 14, Connaughton 13. To your point, getting other people involved is huge. And this is just another example of this game. But one of the biggest things I think is obviously the Grizzlies shot poor from behind the arc, but the Bucks from the free throw line uncharacteristically elite. I would say 21 for 22 from the line. That it wouldn't have made the difference, but it's nice to see at least.
It helps, and I mean, like we saw in the finals, it can happen. We're capable of it. I really don't have a good answer as to why we can kind of have so many different games on the free throw spectrum where, like we were talking about, Giannis goes 10 for 14 one game, 9 for 18, 18 for 18. It's a little bit confusing to me, but again, at the end of the day, he brings so much to the table. And when you get a game like that, as well as the Grizzlies played, yeah, you can't really beat the Bucks if they're doing everything well because they're so good already on offense and defense. And I think that was something that really encouraged me in that Grizzlies game.
And you talked about the Grizzlies being a piece away from being true contenders, which is scary, seeing that after this game they're 31-16, 14-7 on the road. What piece, if you know of a specific one, do you think they are short on this team?
I've taken a lot of flack from some of my friends who are NBA fans for this one, but I would love to see them move Dillon Brooks in a piece to go after Buddy Hield. I think that Buddy Hield is a player who is just stuck in purgatory, really. His whole career in the NBA. I think you were telling me he's the first player to was it 400 career threes,
I
and
think so.
no one really even paid attention because he's on the Kings, and he's a quiet assassin. I know he's had a little bit of drama, maybe running his mouth a little bit in terms of I want a bigger contract, I want to trade, and that's obviously something to consider if you're the Grizzlies. Is this a guy that might jump ship on us in a few years if something goes wrong? But I think the kind of scorer he is, he would make them even more lethal offensively, and he'd be that second true creator on that team. Because as good as Dillon Brooks is, I do think that he has a pretty set ceiling. He's been a great as long as he's been in the NBA. I wouldn't say he's ever taken that all-star leap like a couple other guys have. And I think if you would package Brooks a first and maybe a cap filler, I think you could get a Buddy Hield and maybe even like a second round pick from the Kings. But they are scary. They're very scary and young. They've done a great job getting young players around John Morant.
To your point, Brooks, he's been a good player, but he's also been inconsistent. And so, although that trade seems like a lot, you know what you're getting with Heald every night, seemingly. So the third game, the last game this week was last night. Gritty, disgusting performance. Nobody really liked watching. Bucks beat the Bulls 94-90. Obviously, the Bulls were without Levine. They were without Ball. They are both out for an extended period of time. Ball 6 to 8 weeks. Levine, nothing back yet. But DeMar DeRozan, 35 points for the Bulls. Vucevic, 19. Thomas, 11. Nobody else had double digits. And for the Bucks, Giannis 30, Middleton 16, Holiday 13 off the bench, and Portis with 12. What was your biggest takeaway from this game?
My biggest takeaway is the Bucks have improved on their late game on the line defense. I loved the way that they guarded DeRozan at the end of the game. We forced the Bulls to basically re-inbound the ball at the end there. And everybody in the stadium, everybody in the Midwest knew the ball was going to DeMar DeRozan. I was really happy with the way they were able to guard him. And I mean, Vucevic is such a tricky player. The way that he can set screens for guys and get people open is very, very underrated. As good as he is offensively, I think that kind of maybe goes unnoticed a little bit is how good he is at setting screens and opening up the rest of the offense. And the way that we were able to prevent that from happening on that last play was outstanding. Obviously, a couple times in the last few years, we've been on the receiving end of a buzzer beater or a late game shot, which has been really tough, especially on the road. The Utah one comes to mind with Bogdanovich. But the way we were able to guard DeRozan was excellent. Loved the pressure we put on the inbounder. So, and again, they only scored 90 points. So, as ugly as it was, clearly we're doing well defensively. Did that have something to do with Ball and Levine being out? Absolutely. But DeMar DeRozan is still one of the most elite one-on-one offensive players in the game. And I will say one more thing. I had no idea he was going to be this good this year. When I saw that contract, I was a little bit confused as to why they signed another shooting guard when the Bulls have three, basically, depending on where you qualify Kobe White. But he's been amazing, completely proving me wrong. Turn back the clock, and they're dangerous. I would not want to play them on the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was a weird game. Obviously, DeRozan from the field was good, 9 for 18, but 17 for 18 from the line. That's where he got most of them. It seemed like anytime he pulled up from mid range, he got a whistle on it. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and point fingers because overall the free throw disparity was pretty even. Um, but it is interesting. National games usually you start seeing a little more controversy around that. But poor shooting from both teams, but Giannis came to play again. 30 points, 12 rebounds, like I said. Drew looked good off the bench. Bobby Portis didn't shoot well. Really, none of the Bucks shot well, but still able to eke it out. And again, Giannis shooting okay from the free throw line, 8 of 12. He has improved. I think he's something like 82% since he's come back. Do you think that's just kind of a fluke, or if mentally he's kind of back to where he needs to be?
We can hope that he's at that point mentally. I think a bigger sample size obviously is important, and it'll really depend. I'm always curious to see how star players are going to respond after the All-Star break, especially for a guy like Giannis, who really, I mean, he doesn't take a day off. He's a gym rat. He works so hard on his shot on every element of his game, and I think the All-Star break, a lot of other guys can kind of get rejuvenated, and if you can give a Giannis a couple days to get healthy too, that's going to be, I think, pretty scary for the rest of the league when he can come back. I'm hoping it's an upward trend. I personally believe it is, but again, smaller sample size. I think we can wait a couple months on it and kind of see where he's at. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And kind of backtracking a little bit to your point about that last defensive stand, I totally agree. This is a team that usually lost those close games at the end. So to see Drew give some pushback on the post play, force DeMar into a three. To your point, he's an elite player, elite scorer, not elite from three. So that was huge. Love to see that physicality. But the big story, the only story anybody's going to pay attention to, Grayson Allen fouled Alex Caruso hard. got a flagrant 2, was ejected. Caruso played the rest of the game. You could tell it was bothering him, though. Fractured wrist is the final injury prognosis. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. We don't have to talk about it too much. Obviously, everybody's already talking about it. Everybody is on one end of the spectrum or the other. But from your point of view, what did you think of the play? Obviously, we don't have to talk about Grayson Allen. I think both of our feelings on him are well known. But what do you see on the play?
I think Allen is a player who, ever since high school, he's always played really at 110% speed, and he had some dunks in college. I remember there was a game against UNLV. He took off for like a step through the free throw line, dunked it, and when he fell on his back, I was legitimately worried that he'd like fractured his spine because he landed so hard because he puts his momentum into everything he does. This makes him a little bit more of a liability defensively because he can kind of commit pretty hard to some challenges at the rim. In that situation, definitely a flagrant one, whether it's intentional or not. It was a pretty sloppy challenge. I think the thing that probably made it the flagrant 2 was just that follow through at the end. He doesn't give up on plays, which is very positive. He goes after loose balls. He gets in those scrums, but also you have to know when to take the foul in that situation. You're an NBA player. And I think it was definitely a mistake at the end of the play to swing back in almost to try to get a block. I think that's something that if I'm but you have to just tell him you can't risk that. Take the foul. You're going to get a foul called anyway. It's not like you're going to gain anything by making any other kind of contact. And I think where a lot of the frustration comes from Bulls fans, national media didn't really go over to check up on him. That I think was a little bit low to me. I don't think this is a dirty play though. I think that he just way overcommitted. But not trying to take, any kind of responsibility off that. He has to get that under control. He's had problems with over contesting and with going too aggressively at the basket. He's going to get himself or someone else injured. And whether it's an accident or not, if you run someone over on accident, you're still going to jail. You can't just say it was an accident. So he's going to have to figure it out. We don't want that in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think the fall, obviously prayers up for Caruso, speedy recovery. The fall made it look a lot worse too. Again, I'm not saying the foul wasn't the flagrant 1. It clearly was. Flagrant 2, a little more dicey, but, very interesting scenes. And we'll see what the NBA does. Obviously, he's out tonight against Sacramento with hip tightness or soreness, one or the other. So we will go into that. The Bucks are currently playing against Sacramento. We will actually save that for last. We'll look at the week up ahead. Obviously, Sacramento today, Saturday. The Bucks only have 2 games this week. Outside of that, they have at Cleveland Wednesday versus New York Friday. Against Cleveland, obviously, Cleveland's looked very good this season, even with, I believe, Sexton out, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Sexton or Garland?
For the season.
Yeah. So that's huge. But going into the game, Cleveland, Wednesday on the road, 6 p.m. What are you looking for this game? Bucks win. How do you think this game plays out?
I don't want to be too much of a pessimist. And obviously, when you have a player like Giannis and guys like Holiday who are so good defensively, you're always going to give yourself a chance. I see Cleveland winning this game, and I actually could see them winning by double digits. I think that missing Lopez is going to be huge. And Cleveland is huge. I mean, they're playing 6'10" Lauri Markkanen at the 3, which is absurd. It's kind of like when you're playing 2K and you're like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we just put all our centers out on the court? Let's see if it works. That's basically what they're doing, and it works. I mean, when Kevin Love is like the smallest guy out there sometimes, minus your guards, and he's 6'10", it's pretty crazy to watch. I think we will struggle. Certainly, Jared Allen is going to impose his presence. We don't have someone like Brook Lopez who's going to finish in the paint. Hopefully, Portis can kind of take him out to the three-point line a little bit. He obviously loses a lot of his defensive presence when you bring him further and further out. Still, we're going to struggle inside. Giannis is going to have to really attack, hope you can get him into foul trouble. And Darius Garland's a player I absolutely love watching. I think he's a star in the making. As long as he's healthy, his quickness, his shooting mechanics are so fluid. That's going to be really tough. And I think that the presence of all those bigs and being able to either have a skyscraper lineup or to be able to just rotate those bigs in and out is going to be physically very challenging. And I would expect Cleveland to win in a high scoring game.
Yeah, I would expect them to win as well. This is a team that along with a lot of other people, I think laughed at when they put this team together. You can't start a team with five centers. It's like in fantasy football, just saying, I want all the running backs so nobody else can have any. But it's worked. Credit to them. They've looked good. Garland has looked fantastic. And this, without Brook, it's going to be a tough offense to stop. And this isn't the back-to-back game for them either. They play tonight against Oklahoma City. They play Monday against New York, and then they obviously play us on that Wednesday. So they'll be fresh. I agree. It's a tough matchup for the Bucks with their current roster the way it is. I think it'll be competitive for the first half. I think Cleveland might do that thing to the Bucks that the Bucks unfortunately do a lot, where they kind of give it up in the third quarter.
Yeah, that could be it.
Moving on to Friday, the Bucks play the Knicks at home. The Knicks 22-24, record 11-10 away at the moment though, which is interesting. Better road record than home record. The Knicks will be coming into the game on a tough stretch. They play the Clippers Sunday, Cleveland Monday, at Miami Wednesday, at the Bucks Friday. Do you think that takes a little something out of their sails coming into Friday night at 9 p.m.?
I do. I think that the Knicks are another one of those teams in the same realm as Atlanta, where you certainly don't want to play them in the playoffs, but I think it is still fair to say that they've underperformed a little bit. Where the expectation's a bit high, it's New York. Of course, their expectations are always probably too high. So obviously they're professionals, and I'm not saying I feel too bad for them, but I think the expectations for Julius Randle to be like Anthony Davis were a little bit unrealistic. I think the Knicks are a very solid 5 to 6 seed in the playoffs. Again, not a team that I think are any closer to a championship than they were last year. But certainly they're going to want to string some wins together. If you can't get enough wins, you don't even have a chance in the playoffs. And you do not want to get against the Bucks or the Nets. Don't want to get that 7 or 8 seed. So I can really see the Knicks kind of going for it. I actually expect them to make a few trades. Getting Cam Reddish, I think, was a big win for them. Just an instant offense type of guy. I think based on how he did against the Bucks in the playoffs, he's a guy to watch out for because he absolutely carried the Hawks in Game 6, amazingly kept them in the game with, I think it was 27 points on like 8 of 10 from 3 or something absurd. So he's a guy to watch, but I don't expect them to win that game. I think that the fatigue might set in a little bit, and I don't expect them, honestly, out of those 4 games, it wouldn't stun me to see them go 0-4. That's a brutal stretch of games, and like you said, it's strange that they're playing better away from the Garden, but especially having to go from, is it home against the Clippers or away?
I believe it is also away. All their games are on the road.
That's a disaster. Having to literally cross the country is, you don't want to
It
have
is at home. At
it
home.
is
Sunday.
Okay. Still having to go to Miami and then into the Midwest. That's a lot of travel. It's different than one of those West Coast or East Coast road trips that you kind of get to do. I expect the Bucks to win that game.
You talked about Cam Reddish. Obviously, you're a big Cam Reddish fan. He went to Duke. You are a big Duke fan as well. Obviously, he's a great player. I think we both know he's super talented. But one of the questions is how he is going to fit in with this team. Obviously, they have a lot of shooting guards / small forwards. How do you think he fits in? Is he a 6-man kind of guy that you can use interchangeably? Is he a guy you throw in over Evan Fournier? How would you utilize him in this offense?
There's a huge amount of risk involved in where you play him. I personally believe that Kevin Knox was horribly misused in New York. I certainly don't think he was ever going to be a physical presence, but he's a very gifted scorer and still a pretty good athlete on both ends of the floor. So seeing him in New York just kind of flounder, I think, in my opinion, was a little bit more of the way that they used him and less indicative of actually how he is as a player. Would not surprise me to see him do fairly well in his new home. So for Reddish, I think if I'm him, I'm a little bit scared that I kind of fall down the pecking order. If they're trying to use him the same way as a Kevin Knox, but the biggest difference for me is that Cam Reddish really is a point forward. He was a point guard in high school until he hit his growth spurt. And something I think people really forget about when he was in high school in Pennsylvania was how good of a creator he was. Very skilled handle, good shot creator, but also a great passer. And I think the biggest downside to his game has always been his defense, which is why I personally don't think they'll start him. He picks up quick fouls and he commits a ton of fouls in the backcourt, which is just like, excuse me, not the backcourt, under his own basket, I should say, which you just can't make that mistake in an NBA game. You can't rack up 2 fouls in a quarter like that. So I do think he'll be a sixth man. I could see him slotting into the starting lineup once in a while, actually at small forward. And what I think that they should do is once in a while start RJ Barrett at point guard, get a little bit of the pick and roll action. Barrett's been very good with that. However, seeing how good Fournier is as a player and just having that veteran presence makes me think it's more likely, as you said, to see him coming off the bench. What do you think about Reddish's usage there?
I'm not even going to waste my breath because you have obviously known a lot more about Reddish and Barrett than me. Obviously, both Duke guys. You're a huge Duke fan. Always keep up on them, and you are much more in tune with the high school scene. So I'm just gonna let that kind of sizzle in the back of the minds of anybody listening, watching, because I can't come up with anything next to that. So we'll keep it there. Um, but so this week, obviously, like we said, at Cleveland versus New York are the 2 games this week. We're not going to count the Kings game. You said lose at Cleveland, win New York. So I would assume for you, you're happy with 1-1, ecstatic with 2-0. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, if you go 0-3, if you include the Kings tonight, that'd be a pretty bad stretch. I don't think the Kings should be a team we're super worried about. But I even think that if you go 0-2 in those games, it's not the end of the world. But you'd really like to at least beat the Knicks at home. And I think 2-0 would be very successful considering how difficult that lineup is in Cleveland. Like you said, I think to a lot of NBA fans, myself included, it looked like a disastrous decision to just stack up on big men, especially with the way that this league is going. But they found their guys and they've been able to make it really work. So I think beating Cleveland right now is about as tough as it's been to beat Cleveland since the LeBron James and Kyrie Irving pairing.
Absolutely. And to your point about the Kings game, there's currently 2:40 left in the first because it started at 6. Kings are up 28-20, shooting 65% from the field, 56% from 3, but only 1 for 3 from the stripe. Where the Bucks are shooting 37% from the field, 50% from deep. Giannis and Drew Holiday have 7. And for the Kings, they have 5 players with 5 points: Bagley, Barnes, Halliburton, Davis, and Jones. Um, Now it's 30-20 as I say that. Maybe I should stop talking, but like you said, this is kind of a dangerous team. It hurts if they go 0-3 this week. But this Kings team is sneaky good. It doesn't kill the Bucks if they lose this game, especially with Giannis out, correct?
Yeah, and I actually, to be honest, I was not aware Giannis was out. That I think takes a lot of the wind out of our sails. So if he's out, no, you can't consider it a bad loss. Very talented team, mess of an organization, and but clearly, pretty much every year they have the talent to beat almost any team on a given night. You can't really rely on them to make the playoffs. And of course, maybe I can get your thoughts on this. Maybe some of those Kings players are playing to get traded over to Milwaukee. What do you think about these rumors that we might be having a trade brew up with the Kings?
I actually think Marvin Bagley would work with the Bucks. I don't think we need him to do anything special. So I think he'd be a good guy to slot in for the regular season until it ends, until Brook comes back. If Brook needs to shake off some rust, and if he needs to start in the playoffs, so be it. But right now, kind of like we talked about against the Cavs, Bobby Portis, as much as I love him, he is not going to cut it. And to correct myself earlier, in case I said Giannis, it is Middleton who had 7 points for the Bucks.
Middleton.
Giannis is out. It seems like kind of load management for that knee, and the lead is now 34-25. So
Okay.
tough Kings team though. But I would also like Buddy Hield for Dante DiVincenzo straight up.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
throwing a candy bar for him.
absolutely. I think maybe like a $25 unprotected Applebee's gift card could put it over the edge.
What does an unprotected Applebee's gift card exactly entail?
Anything on the menu, baby. Gotta go all out.
Well, that's it. Shorter episode, obviously. Go watch the Bucks Packers on at 8 o'clock. Why not? We're here. Packer game prediction, Max. I already made mine on Lombardi sweep. What's yours?
All right, I'm gonna give a really detailed prediction. So for all the new listeners, for me or returning listeners, I do some substitute teaching, make a little bit of money, enjoy it. Wi-Fi's terrible in the school I was at, so I had about an hour to myself at lunch with basically no data on my phone, but I had a computer. So I made a big list of all my NFL predictions. Here's what I think's going to happen. Packers jump out to an early lead, 14-0, something in that range. Go back and forth, a couple punts, couple empty possessions. Ultimately, I think we go into halftime roughly 17-6, 17-7, maybe. And then I think by the end of the game, I'm going to forget the math if they got 6, but I'm going to predict that the Packers win 28-17. I think the 49ers keep it interesting in that third quarter, but Packers do enough pull away. I expect Adams to have a big-time game, and I'm just going to say we win this one. I think we finally get over our playoff woes against the 49ers. Trevor, what is your prediction for the Packers tonight?
Well, I already made mine. So if you're interested, hey, go watch Lombardi Sweep. I'm
Check
not
Lombardi
gonna
sweep.
I'm not gonna do any of that for you. But this has been an episode Buckshot with Luke and Trevor, and now Max. Max, where can the people find you? I know you don't have a Twitter, but
You can,
Instagram, does that
like,
work?
once in a while, like if I'm just outside, you can just find me. But just kidding. Yeah, you can find me. It's Max13 on Instagram, HERTEEN. If anybody's interested. Thank you so much, Trevor, for having me. This has been super fun. Love the Bucks. Feeling really, really good about the Bucks. Actually, I'm saying it right now. Bucks make the finals. And here's my super bold one that everyone makes fun of me for, but I'm sticking with it. Bucks win in 6 games in the finals over the Los Angeles Lakers.
All right. Well, hey, you heard it here first. Bucks over the Lakers in 6. Don't question it. Max, thank you again for coming in. This
Thank
was your
you.
episode of Buckshots with Luke and Trevor and Max, and you guys have a good one. We will see you all later.